Doing well. How are you guys?
I'm doing good. Did your fantasy football team blow up last night with the debacle out on the West Coast?
Thankfully, no. I did have the Packers defense in one league, but I already had that matchup won. Although I could have used a Randall Cobb touchdown, which cost me in another league. I ended up losing that one because he practically did nothing the whole game.
So does that kind of thing make predicting NASCAR fantasy racing seem to be like no brainer compared to NFL football?
Well, at least the officiating. I mean,
Yeah.
NASCAR gets criticized a lot, but yeah, I mean that was mind-blowing proportions last night in Seattle.
Yeah. Well, let me introduce Eric. We're talking to Eric McClung, who Eric writes fantasy NASCAR racing and fantasy football for KFFL.com, and Eric is a regular contributor here at On Pit Row. You can follow Eric on Twitter at Eric McClung and read all of his fantasy prognostications and advice. If you follow him on Twitter, there's tons of it, and it's really good stuff. Eric, okay, we're going to Dover. Unfortunately, we're cutting you a little bit short tonight, but we've still got about, 8 minutes or so?
We got about 8 minutes,
so
seven and a half.
We've got some time to get through your picks for Dover. I'm assuming that you and Darren, what did you and Darren end up calling your new stat for whatever it is?
It's called, we only DMV, sorry. It's driver magnitude value.
Okay.
We're still kind of working on it. It's not yet available. It's going to be on his site.
Okay.
FantasyRacingCheatSheet.com.
Right.
It could be in time for the new season.
Okay. Well, have you run Dover through the numbers for that stat, or are we just going to go with traditional what you normally do?
Well, I do have it up here, sort of our little prototype of what we're doing.
Right.
Jimmy Johnson, head and shoulders above,
I would think,
above the rest of the competition at this track. This is one of the number one tracks for Jimmy Johnson. Pretty much any way you want to slice it. Mm-hmm. And when you talk about the chase and starting Jimmy Johnson, absolutely have to start him in Dover. I mean, you want to start him in early in the spring race in Dover too, but certainly in the chase. Also, if you only have two Jimmy Johnson starts left, you absolutely have to use it here at Dover, and then near the end of the chase in Phoenix. Those are two Jimmy Johnson dominated sites.
Yeah, he has a few pretty good racetracks in these last 10, doesn't he? Okay, so looking at your Yahoo team for this week going to Dover, who are you going to start? Who are you going to have in reserve, and what are you looking at specifically for Dover Downs?
Well, I mentioned Jimmy Johnson. Again, I think he's the absolute must-start on the A-list. He won Dover back in June, started on the outside pole. Average running position of third or better in 7 straight at Dover, which is absolutely phenomenal. In that time, he's led an average of 234 laps per race. Over the last 9, he's led nearly half of the laps. So really no other way to go other than Jimmy Johnson. But if you need to, for whatever reason, I think Matt Kenseth, although he's been kind of mediocre in the chase so far, he's got 9 top 5s and 11 Dover races. That goes back to 2007. He's not a guy who leads a lot of laps at Dover, but he's typically good for, 3rd, 4th, 5th place type of finish.
Are you discounting Kenseth at all because of his lame duck status at this point, with leaving to go to Joe Gibbs next year?
Not necessarily. I think that although it's not a good indicator, how he started off the chase, I think Dover is really the telltale sign of if he's going to be somebody you're going to even consider the rest of the chase. If he comes up, with a 15th, 16th type of run, looks off his game, given how good he typically is year in and year out at Dover. If there's a slide there in performance, I think you probably are going to want to maybe shy away from him, going forward. But, I think in terms of the bullets that Roush has in the chase, I think he's the guy to go to over Greg Biffle if they really want to back somebody for a championship run. I still think Kenseth is their best option.
What are you looking for as far as the guys that you want to stay away from wholeheartedly at Dover?
Guys to stay away from. I think Carl Edwards. I mean, at this point, I think that's kind of just beating up on him to say not to start him. You know, he's been pretty, you know, disappointing season. He's got good numbers over his career at Dover. On the DMV rating, he's actually third. So you know, good numbers there, but just, you know, not running very well this season. Denny Hamlin, I think a lot of people are going to be tempted to take him, obviously, coming off, you know, his win, you know, and how good he's been. But his numbers at Dover, you know, not very good. So probably a guy I would want to stay away from. You know, hopefully, if you're playing from behind in your league, maybe some people will be tempted to go Denny Hamlin's route just because of, you know, how hot he's been lately. And maybe you can take advantage of that and start Jimmy Johnson where others might not if they go with Hamlin. So he's a guy that, just based on how good Jimmy Johnson is at this site and how bad Hamlin has been, you know, I don't think Hamlin can bump Jimmy Johnson out, you know, of the A list in Yahoo this week.
How about your B list?
On the B list, I'll give you four kind of more obvious guys and one sort of sleeper. Casey Kane, although not over the course of his history, not the best driver at Dover, but he's been good lately. Career best fourth in the chase race at Dover last year. Finished ninth back in June. He's got a pair of top fives to start the chase, so he's obviously running well. He has 12 finishes in the top 15 over the last 13 races of the season, so he's running extremely consistent, as is Clint Boyer. He's been pretty much a guaranteed top 15 here over the last you know, several weeks and months. He's got an average running position of 13th or better in 6 of the last 8 at Dover. He started 4th, finished 5th in June, back in the June race, and those are both career bests, both the qualifying and the finishes, career best for him at Dover. Dale Earnhardt Jr., he finished 4th at Dover in that June race that I mentioned, which is his first top 10 since 2007 at Dover. So it's been a while since he's run this well. In that run, he posted a career best average running position of 6th. However, he only has one top 5 over his last half dozen races this season, but he's not finished outside of the top 15. So even though he's not a guy who's probably going to challenge for a win or maybe even a top 5, he looks like a very consistent kind of guy. You know, somebody's not going to hurt you if you start him. A little bit of a sleeper pick I like is Marcus Ambrose. Last 3 Dover races, he's finished 3rd, 9th, and 10th. However, he's not qualified better than 12th in any of those 3 races. So he's a guy who, you know, if he qualifies deep in the pack, you know, you may not have to worry about it because he's shown that he can overcome that and run very well. However, he's not run very well so far in the chase. So again, this is more sort of a wild card, you know, more of a sleeper pick.
We got about 30 seconds, Eric. Who are you liking in the C's? Is Eric Almirola a C driver?
He is, yeah, and actually that's who I was going to recommend.
Yeah.
He started 12th, finished 6th at Dover in June, which is impressive in and of itself. Even more so considering that it was his first career start in a Cup race at Dover. He only has 2 top 10s this season. Of course, the Dover mention I just raced, and then Martinsville, which is also in the chase as well. So, you know, we've been using Sam Hornish Jr. a lot in the C list because he's, you know, he just had a streak of 3 finishes where he finished exactly in 11th. That just ended with a 21st place finish last week. But a lot of people have been using him in the C list, need to go another route. I think Amarola is definitely the guy that you want here. Martinsville as well. And then, you know, hopefully you can get by with those 2 for the rest of the season.
Yeah, a little insider tip for you too, Eric. Almirola's got the on-pit row mojo because we had him on the show earlier today, and that always pays off for
yes,
drivers that are on this show. I'm telling you, it's a fact. We can go back and show you. Eric, thanks a lot for your time this week. He is Eric McClung. You can follow him on Twitter at Eric McClung and read his fantasy NASCAR articles at kffl.com, as well as NASCAR or NFL fantasy football stuff too. Eric, thanks again for your time. Sorry we had to cut you a little bit short this week, but Steve got long-winded bitching about Jeff Gordon again. So we'll talk to you in a couple weeks.
All right, my pleasure. Take care.
See ya. Eric McClung.